it showing?
Yep, okay, recording is started.
Perfect. All right. So we'll go ahead and open up with a couple polls Mike and I went through. If the audio was on while you were listening, you might have heard us put them together. But the first question for all of you out there, and let's see, we have just over, looks about 130 people, which is amazing. What is your level of .NET scripting experience? Let me launch that now and help Mike understand, where he should go with the content today. Are a lot of you beginners or mid-level? Can you see that on your side, Mike?
I sure can.
Okay, great. I always enjoy these polls. We get a good sense. All right, there's 84% of you have answered, so we'll go ahead and just close that poll out, share it with everybody. Looks like it's a relatively new topic for a lot of folks, which is good. So hopefully we can bring a lot of information in today's training for you. I'll hide that and then ask the second question, which I think is really important as well. Mike brought this one up today. Why do you use ScriptTask in SSIS mostly? Why do you use scripts in SSIS mostly? Control, flow, source, test transformations, you may use them across the board, but give us a sense for why you're doing it more often than not. I'll let that just run for a couple of seconds. Give everybody a chance. All right, I'll go ahead and close that out and share it with everybody. Looks like either all of the above or transformations wins on this one, Mike.
Okay. All the above and...
It's interesting.
Okay. Good, and control flow. That's what I figured.
All right.
All right.
Yep. All right, so we'll go ahead and hide that out. If I could actually use my mouse a little bit better. And Mike, I'll go ahead and switch presenter to you. All right. Stay on with it until we can see your screen.
So
there you go. Looks good.
Can you see my screen now?
You can totally see it, yep. And
all
what
right.
we'll do for everybody is, of course, we're recording. Mike's going to take it away. And all the questions we'll answer towards the last half of the session. Thanks, Mike.
Yep, no problem. Thanks, Tim. All right, so as Tim said, my name is Mike Davis, and I'm a senior BI consultant here with Pragmatic Works. Work for Brian Knight here in Jacksonville, Florida, and been doing BI for a while. And before that, I did some .NET. It's been a few years since I was primarily a .NET developer, so a lot of my .NET skills are rusty, but I still use them quite a bit in SSIS when I have to. So a little bit about me. Get to the first slide here. Here we go. About me. I got a couple of books that I've written with Brian, the Integration Services Trainer, and then there's a Business Intelligence Trainer also. Both of those come with DVDs. And I'm certified in the Business Intelligence for Microsoft 2008 also. All right, so enough about me. Let's get started with what you're really here for. Talking about ScriptTask and script components in SSIS. So today what we're going to talk about is when you would use ScriptTask in the control flow and when you would use script components in the data flow. So a ScriptTask is in the control flow and a script component would be in the data flow. And you can use them in the control flow to do lots of things like file manipulations, changing variable values, all sorts of cool things that maybe there's not a task in the toolbar that can do what you want, or in the toolbox to do what you want. So you have to pull it out and write a little .NET to make it happen. Now, there are some add-ons like Task Factory and things like that you can add to SSIS that'll do those tasks for you. But if you're not purchasing add-ons like that, then you'll have to write the .NET code to actually make it happen. And then inside of the data flow, of course, you can use them as either a source or a destination or a transformation. And in this course here, or in this little webinar here, I'm going to be covering just transformations, showing you how to transform data, because that's the most popular thing. That's what most people use them for inside of data flows. So let's talk about the script task first and the control flow. I'm going to talk about the variables. There's different types of variables. You can use the variables from the package and the variables from the script task. So there's two different types. I'll show you those. Talk about the package objects. You can actually refer to objects in the package themselves. and talk about firing events and using the events that are inside of the .NET language to help you get information out of your script task back to your package. Oh, and I don't know if you guys heard, Bill Gates had to go through the airport the other day, and the TSA was pretty rude to him. I don't know if you guys saw that in the news or not. All right. It's always better when you do this live. I can actually hear the laughs or the groans, whatever one you guys are doing. Hopefully laughs. All right.
I'm laughing with you, Mike. I'm laughing.
All right, good. Yeah, good. All right. All right, so let's go in here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start up a fresh package here. It's a new SSIS package. So we've got nothing going on inside of here. And like I mentioned before, over on the left-hand side, we have our toolbox, and lots of tasks in here that we can do. There's a few tasks in here you may notice that you don't have in yours. I have an add-in from Pragmatic Works called Task Factory installed, so you'll see these TF ones. You can ignore those, but those will do extra things for you. There's one thing that you can't do over here with the native items that come with SSIS, and that's to check to see if a file exists. It's one of the things very popular. I want to see if the file exists inside of a folder before I go run a data flow and get some sort of error message or something like that. There is a file system task, and with the file system task you can do things like copy files, rename files, create them, move them, things like that, but you can't check this to see if the file exists or not. So I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to drag out a script task, and we'll use a script task. I'm going to name this check for file, and this will check to see if this file exists. And what I'll do is I'll go to my C drive here and go just a little folder test. Here we go. So I have a little file here called test.txt, and there's nothing in my backup folder. That's good. So I'm going to use that file to check to see if that file exists. Let's go back to my package. And what I'll do here is I'm going to right click and go to variables, and I'm going to create a couple of variables in my package here. I'll create one, and this will be str file name. It'll be a string variable, and I'll give it the name and the location of the file. test/test.txt. And I believe that's correct. Let's make sure. C test.txt. Yep. All right. And I'll create one more variable. This will be a Boolean variable, and I'll say file exist. And I'll make this a Boolean. It'll default to false. So I've created two variables here, a string variable that holds the file name, and then a Boolean that'll tell me whether the file exists or not, true or false. So I'm going to set this Boolean variable based on whether the file exists or not. So let's close that up. So these are two package level variables, and let's open up my script task now. Now when you open up a script task for the first time, at the very top here you have a couple of choices for script language. You have VB and C# as your languages. Now if I select VB and then I hit edit script down at the bottom here, it opens up my script editor. There we go. And it gives me the script editing with the VB code already built in. So right here where it says add your code here is where we'll add our code. There's some help section here with some comments, and we'll look at those in a moment. Let's go back. And now if you notice when I go back, once I've closed that editor, that now the Visual Basic is grayed out. So even though I didn't make any changes, I didn't do anything to the script task, once you've clicked on the Edit Script button, this script task is now a VB or C# script, whatever one you've selected up here, and you can't change it. So if I wanted to change this to C#, I would have to actually cancel, delete this, and drag in a new script task and start over again. So a common complaint is, I like using VB, but the default is C# in 2008. Now, in 2005, the only choice you have is VB. So if you're on 2005, you don't have to worry about this. But in 2008, C# is the default here. And a lot of people say, well, I like using VB. I don't want to use C#. So you can go to Tools up here and go to Options and go to Business Intelligence Designers, Integration Services. And right here, there's a choice for your script language. And you could change that to VB instead of C#, which is what I've done here. I'm more comfortable with VB, haven't done a whole lot of C#, so I'll be doing most of my, or all of my examples here in VB. Again, this is under Tools, Options, Business Intelligence Designers. All right, so let's go back into our file here. All right, our entry point is main. That's just the name of the function that's going to go into, or the name of the class that's going to go into when we get into the script task. And then below this, where we put in our variables, we have read-only variables and read-write variables. Of course, read-write variables, we can make changes to the variables. And read-only variables, of course, we can't make any changes to those. So a variable that I would want to pass into this would be that string variable, and I want to pass it in as a read only because I don't want to change the name of the file. I just want to get the name of the file. So I'm going to click on the little ellipse over here. Now in 2005 you don't have this ellipse. You've got to actually type in the name of the file, and it is case sensitive, or I'm sorry, the name of the variable, and it is case sensitive. So I'm going to click on the ellipse here for 2008 though, and I can find that STR file name. Click on OK. Now of course the Boolean variable, I do want to change that value. That will be either true or false based on whether the file exists or not. So that's going to be a read-write variable. So I'll go ahead and select that. I'll put that one inside of there. So I've passed in two variables here, my read-only variables and my read-write variables. I've got two variables passed into the package I can use. Now one other thing that changed between 2005 and 2008 also is the general and script task box here have been kind of flipped around. The script used to be under general, and the reason they've done that is because under general the only thing you have is the name and description for the task, which really once you set that up once you don't need to go back into that and mess with it. 99% of the time you're going to be clicking on script and then click on edit script. So they moved that around so that when you open up the script editor it goes right to script. So we go to edit script now, and let's open this up. A few things here right at the beginning. You see that it's already imported a few items for us here. The DTS runtime is required for us to do this work, and a lot of things like data and math are very common functions that you may call inside of here. You also see it does sets up success and failure automatically to our DTS runtimes for failure and success. So below, when we're doing things like the task results, we can do just dot success instead of dot and then all of those other items from the DLL that we had to call. Again, all that's all done automatically for you. But let's go ahead and do the file exists. We want to check to see if that file exists. So right here where it said add your code here is when I want to add my code. And here's the main public function here it's going into. And I'm going to say DTS dot. I know you're thinking, well, isn't this SSIS? Why are we typing in DTS? DTS was 2000. And yes, it is DTS. Microsoft did not change the DLLs and everything in the background when they created SSIS, so everything still says DTS dot whenever you're calling these functions, not SSIS dot. So I'm going to go down to DTS, and you'll see we have other items here. And I can't zoom in while I have my IntelliSense up, but hopefully you can see this. I have connections, events, the task results, and variables. Very important things in the package that we can control. So these are the objects from the package that we can pull up immediately right now. Most popular one, of course, is variables. So let's go into variables here. And then we need to type in the name of the variable. And this is case sensitive. So what I like to do, instead of guessing and typing in STR, file name inside of here and hoping I got the capitalization right there above it, where I've got my little comment line, I like to copy and paste my variables from my ScriptTask window into that section there so that I have them and I know that I got the name right. So let's do that real quick. Let me go in here. I'm going to grab the string file name and we'll paste that in here. And I'll grab the BOL file exist. I'll paste that in there also. So with just two variables, it's not that big of a deal, but you can imagine if you've gone in here and you've added 20 or 30 variables in this list here, and it goes on and on and on and on and on, it's very easy to copy and paste it right down inside of your ScriptTask now, and now you can grab those variable names from right inside your ScriptTask. Just keep in mind, though, if you do change the name of the variable or add new variables, you'll need to add those to your little comment here. Okay, so I'm going to say DTS.variables, and I'll say string file name. We've got to put quotes in front of it here, double quotes to end it, close the parentheses, and now you hit dot, and now here's the properties of the variables. So we can get the data type of the variable, evaluated expression, that's either going to be true or false, and then we can go down here, and there's the name of the variable. That's actually the real name of the variable. That's not the value of the variable. We want the value, and that value is right down here under value. And this is how you get the value of a variable from your package. So DTS.variables, and then you put in the file name, or the variable name. Again, it's case sensitive, and then dot value. And now we can use that value in our package. Now I'm going to go back up top here to my imports, and I'm going to import another DLL here, and it's going to be import system.io. And the system.io is going to allow me to type in file dot and get some file commands out of this. You can do system.io.file, but this just saves you a little bit of work there. So with system.io, I can do file dot, and there's a few things you can do, like check to see if a file exists. There's a few other ones here, like append to them, copy, create, and delete. A lot of those things you can do with the file system task back in the package. No need to create a script task for that. But exist is not one of those that exists, so we're going to use that. So file.exist, and then we need to put in the name of the file. Well, I've already got that right here. I can just take this and paste it right up here into my file exist. And that will check to see if that file exists. And this will return a true or a false on whether that file exists or not. So right in front of this, I can type in dts.variables, put in the other variable, which is the Boolean file exist, dot value, and set it equal to the results. So as you can see, with one line of code now, we're able to check to see if a file exists. So just to look a little closer here, so the value of my variable, BOL file exists, is equal to, so I'm changing the value of the variable. That's why it has to be a read-write variable. If you do not set it to a read-write and you attempt to do this, you will get an error message. And then it's going to be equal to the results of this file exists function. So the file exists will actually check to see if the file does exist or not. And the file it's going to check for is whatever the name is inside of this variable. So let's close that. Let's close up my script task, click OK. And let's run the package one time just to see if it actually checks for the file. Let's see what happens. All right, it turns green. That doesn't really tell me anything though. It turned green, I get success, but if we go back into the script task, and you go down to edit script down at the bottom here, you'll see that right after the check for my file exists, I have this set to success. So whether the file exists or not, I'm going to get a success out of my script task. Now what you may want to do is you may want to do something like this. We say if, and then we can, actually I'm sorry, if needs to be after that. So what we can do is we can say if the value of this variable here, and that's going to be either true or false, then we'll give success. And we could do else, and we change it to failure. So this will give us the ability, I can get rid of my extra then over here. There we go. So this will give us the ability to check the value of the variable and then give us a success or failure out of this script task. So if the file does exist, then the script task will succeed. If not, it will fail. And this is one way to do it. So let's do it this way first. And then I'll show you another way you can do it also. So let's execute the package again. The file does exist, so it turns green. Let's change the value of the variable here. Let's put a 1 right after all that. And that file does not exist, so we should get a failure. Oh, we got a success. What did I do wrong here? I put a 1 in there. I should have checked for that file, unless I have that file. I don't have that file, do I? No. Let's go back in here and check. What else did I do here? Did I leave my extras? Oh, there we go. I sure did. I left this extra success down at the bottom here. A very common mistake. Let's go ahead and comment that out. I don't want it to be success. So regardless of what happened up here, I was getting success out still. So let's close that. Very common mistake happens. So let's close this now. Save it, and let's execute the package, and let's see. There we go. So now we get a failure. So that file does not exist. If you go to progress here, you'll see that it just says the script returned a failure result. It doesn't really tell you anything about that. And we'll talk about firing events here in a few minutes and tell you how you can get better information out of your script task. But besides doing that and putting a lot of extra work into your script task here, what I like to do is, let's go back to SSIS. Let's do as little as we can inside the .NET language here, the script task. Let's do as little as we can here because when we pass this package on to someone else who maybe they don't have any .NET experience at all, they may be quite confused about what's going on in here. So when I create a package, I try to limit the amount of scripting going on. If you're going to write a script task to do it, then go ahead and write a program to do it. You don't need SSIS to do it for you. So let's get rid of this here, and let's go back to our results just like we had them. So now I'm going to get a success out of this no matter what. So if the file exists, whether it exists or not, I'm going to get a success out. But my BOL file exists variable will be true or false. So we can check the value of that. So let's close this up here. Let's go back to our control flow. And let's say if the file does exist, I want to go down this path over here and do this. So this will be the exist path. And if the file doesn't exist, I'm going to go this way. So I'm just dragging out a couple of extra script tasks here. And I'm just going to name them exist and not exist. The only reason I'm using ScriptTask is because they don't take any configurations or anything. You can just drop them in a package and they automatically run. It's just kind of an anchor point for me to tie to. Alright, so I'm going to check to see if that file exists. If it does exist, I want to go down this path here. If it doesn't exist, I'm going to go down this other path over here. Well, to do that, we'll take that variable, that BOL file exists. I'm going to copy the name out of here. And I'm going to go back into the presence constraint on my presence constraint line here. And I'm going to right click, go to edit. I'm going to change it from constraint to expression and constraint. And I'm going to say at, you have to use the at symbol here, at BOL file exists equal to true. And we can test that. Yep, it evaluates successfully. And we can do the same thing with the other one, the other presence constraint. This is going to be equal to false though. Looks good. Click OK. So now if the file does exist, it'll go down the left-hand path. If it doesn't exist, it'll go down the right-hand path. So let's go ahead and execute this. Let's see what happens. It does not exist, so we're going down the not exist path. And let's change the value of the variable back to the real file name that does exist. We'll take that 1 out. And then we'll do this one more time. And this time it should go down the left path. And now it does. So that's a very simple little check there, just using one little line of code to check to see if a file exists. Of course, ScriptTask can get a lot more complex than that, and I'm going to show you a more complex one in just a moment here. But before I do, let's jump into let's talk about variables just for a moment. So I told you there's two types of variables. There's variables in the ScriptTask, and there's variables on the package. So those package level variables, to get to those, we use the DTS.variables, and then we can pull those package variables into our ScriptTask. But we can also create ScriptTask variables or .NET variables that we can use inside of our .NET language or inside of our .NET ScriptTask here. Now, of course, when we create those inside of the ScriptTask, they can only be used in that ScriptTask. They can't be used outside the package. Now, we can pass the values of the variables back to the package through a package variable, but we can't use those these ScriptTask variables directly in the package. And I'll show you what I mean. So let's go ahead and declare a variable. To do that, you type in dim, and then we can declare a variable. Let's just call it file name, and we'll make it a string. And now I can set the value of this variable equal to the value from the package. So that DTS variables over here, I can just copy and paste it up into my section here. And so now what I'm doing is I'm taking the value of this package level variable and I'm inserting it into this variable I'm creating in my ScriptTask. Now you may think, well, why would you want to do that? I've already got it here as DTS variables. Why would I want to put it into a variable in the package? Well, imagine if you've typed in the variable name wrong here, or if you change the name of the variable and you refer to this variable using this command over and over and over again all throughout your ScriptTask. If something happens, you would have to come back in here and change the name of that variable over and over and over again. If you made that mistake just one time here and you save the name of the variable here and file name, you wouldn't have to worry about that because file name is going to be filled in with IntelliSense. So if I say if file, and you see file names right there, so I know I'm spelling that correctly. You don't get IntelliSense with the package level variables though. I don't get IntelliSense when I fill in the name inside of the variable section here. So I like to declare variables, even when I'm using a short ScriptTask. A lot of times I'll go ahead and declare variables, so I know it gives me a little cleaner look and feel to it. For example, like my file exists here now, instead of having all of this, I would just delete that out and type in file, if I could type, file name, and there it is. So it makes it a little shorter, a little easier to read, and I'm declaring my variable up top here. So it's kind of separating my variables from what's going on with the rest of my package here. I could do the same thing for this Viola file exists. I could create a file exists variable up here as a Boolean and pass it into it. But since I'm only using it one time here, again, I'm just going to leave it like it is. All right, so let's close this up here. And let's save that, and we'll close this one. Let's go to a different one. So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with BIDN.com. It's Business Intelligence Developers Network. BIDN.com is a great place for sharing ideas and meeting other people in the business intelligence world, and a lot of forums and blogs on there. My blog is on there. I have a lot of good information on there about the ScriptTask, and I have actually a blog or an article on there I wrote about the next ScriptTask I'm getting ready to show you. So let me bring up BIDN. Here's BIDN. So there's my blog right there. BIDN, blogs Mike Davis. A lot of stuff on here about ScriptTask. And let me go back and let me open up this ScriptTask here. Now I've got a lot of variables you can see here that I've declared and passed into this ScriptTask. And if I open this up, you can see there is a lot more code going on inside of this ScriptTask. I've got a lot of variables declared up top here, and then a lot more going on as we go down through the line here. So let's break this down. Let's talk about what's going on here. First of all, what was the purpose of this? So one of the major headaches with flat files in SSIS or any ETL tool is when you have these malformed or these weird files that have headers somewhere in the middle of your data, or headers at the beginning and then in the middle and then somewhere at the end. You got footers too. Just all these weird files you get in. A very common request I get is, I want to parse through it and just get the rows that have data on them. I don't want all these headers out of there. So I created a ScriptTask here that'll go through and read a file and remove the headers for you, basically. It'll create a new file and just copy all the data rows over for you. Now this is not a perfect system. It only works on delimited files, and only if that delimiter doesn't really show up in the headers the same amount of times. So for example, if you've got say 10 columns, then you're going to have 10 delimiters on that row. It counts the delimiters on that row and makes sure that it matches the correct number, and then if it does, it assumes that's a data row and pulls it out. Yes, there is a possibility that one of the headers could have 10 tabs in it, or 10 pipes, or 10 commas, or whatever you're using as your delimiter, but as long as that doesn't happen, this works fairly well. So let's take a look at this task and see what it's actually doing here. First, before we do that, let's take a look at the variables. So here's some variables I created. There's a int delimiter. This is just the number of delimiters. I'm creating a new file, and I'm appending a name to the end of it. I'm calling it fixed. So I'll get a file out with the name fixed. And then there's the file name, extension, the source folder, and the destination folder. So I'm putting them in this fixed folder here. And then whatever the delimiter happens to be, in this case it's a comma delimited. So this package here is something you could use on any file you have, and I have this available on BIDN there. So let's go down here. And again, I put all my variables. They're all read-only variables. I'm not making any changes to any variables, so they're all read-only. And oops, don't need that. Let's go to Edit Script. And let's break this down piece by piece here. So you notice the first thing I did here, I put system.io inside of here. So I wanted to pull that in so I could see what, so I could use the file functions. Then the next thing I did is I pulled in all of the variables, and I gave them .NET variables. So I took every single variable in my package here and I put them into .NET variables. Now I can refer to them using IntelliSense, and again, if I've made some kind of change, or if I need to change the name of the variable for some reason, I can change it in one location, and the rest of the ScriptTask works fine. Also, I want to combine some variables together. Like for example, I need to get the input file name, and that's a combination of the folder, the file name, and the extension variable. Well, of course, if I did all three of those together here, this would be dts.variables, source folder.value, and then dts.variables, str file, and etc., etc. This would be a very long line of code right here, especially this next one here. It's using 4 different variables. So it makes it much easier and cleaner to work with your code if you've put them inside of .NET variables like I've done here. Okay, so basically I'm declaring the variables. I'm putting a few of them together to get my input and output file names here. I'm creating a int line count, setting it to 0. And then I'm going to go through and I'm going to pull in, I create a stream reader here, and I just open that file. So file open is the command. And then we go down here. Got a few more variables I've declared here. These are just temporary variables used to hold the file lines that I'm pulling in. And I read that line in. And then basically what I do is I just do a count, and I see if that is actually equal to the proper int delimiter that I have back in my package. If it is, then I print that line out to the new file. If not, then I don't print it out. And if we can scroll down a little bit farther, here's the next section we'll talk about, and let's talk about events. So all my code up there is checking to see if it has the right number of delimiters on the line. If it's greater than 0, then I say dts.events.fireInformation. So you have different events that you can fire here, and let's look at those. Yeah. dts.events. And then you see a few of these here, and of course I can't zoom in and do IntelliSense at the same time, unfortunately, so let's do, there we go. So we have fire breakpoint hit, fire an error, and fire information, fire progress, fire a warning. The most common of these you'll see is fire information, fire a warning, or fire an error. Those are the ones that you'll see used most often. Fire information, or just put information into the progress tab or the execution results in your package. So if you need some information about what's going on in the script task, this is a great way to do that. So you can see what I'm doing here with the line above this is I'm saying take the number of lines that I counted and put the number in here, lines written to, and then the name of the file. So in my progress or my execution results, I'll get a line out of that says number of lines written to and then the name of the file. So I know how many lines were written, and I know the name of the file it was written to. So good information here. You don't get a lot of debugging out of this. If you remember, if you've done a lot of .NET, you can go over here to the side and you can right-click on the line here and add breakpoints. This doesn't really work inside of SSIS. So really the only way to get good information out of this is to use these events. Now you can use message boxes to pop up and show you information about your variables, just like you do in any other .NET program, and I'll show you that in a second. But message boxes are only good during development time. And you don't want to leave message boxes in your script task when you deploy them. You will get error messages and they will fail to run because they'll say modal boxes are not allowed when you're scheduling your packages. All right, the other one is fire error. There's a fire error that will actually fire an error on the package, and if you've got your package set to fail on errors, which most of the time you do, then it of course is going to cause the package to fail. And if you want to cause a package to fail, you can. That one's just information there. Let's go down a little further here. I'm closing up the file there, getting rid of that, and then I have my catch here. So everything I did there was in a try catch. I definitely recommend using try catches here on just about all your packages, or all your script tasks anyway. And then you'll see I'm catching that error. There's two types of errors I'm catching here. There's the DTS exception, and then there's the exception from the script task itself. So two exceptions will occur if your try fails inside of a script task. So I'm taking the DTS events, fire error, and I'm firing up my error here, and I'm putting in dts.variables, and there's system task name. This is a system variable that has the name of the task, so it'll tell me which task it was that failed. And that's basically it. That's all I'm getting out of that. So I just want to know which task it was, the name of the task that failed, and then whatever the message is to string there. So I'll get a message out telling me the error message and the name of the task. And I believe that's about it on this one. Again, if you want more details on this, there's an article on BIDN. If you go to BIDN and in the search box over here, just type in the word headers. I think that comes up. Let me make sure. Just type in headers and search, and look for me. There we go. Handling headers in flat files SSIS is the article on that. You do have to be a member of BIDN to look at that, but it's a free membership and well worth signing up for. All right, so a very common thing there I get asked. Hopefully you guys got something out of that. So let's go back here, and let's close this one up. And let's see, Tim, what's our time limit looking like? What time do you want me to finish up by?
We have plenty of time. We have another 15 minutes or so, Mike, and you also have some questions here. So whenever you're ready to, we typically wait for the last 10 minutes or so to answer questions. But how
Okay,
are you doing on
great.
content?
I got plenty. I just want to know if I need to shorten it up or lengthen it. So, okay, great. Thank you. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into some script components now. Let's go back to my slideshow just real quick so I can go to my next slide. All right, so script components. So we'll go to data flows now, and we'll talk about script components and what we can do inside of a data flow. So in the control flow, that's used for things like checking, reading files, checking to see if a file exists, things like that. But in a data flow, this is a row by row work. So that you've got some kind of data coming in, 1,000 rows coming into your data flow, and a script component is going to do some work for each one of those rows. Now, there's a couple of things that you want to watch out for when using script components. Speed is going to be one of them, so performance. Script components are very, very, very slow. They are row by row. You're basically running a .NET program for every row that passes through your data flow. And if that .NET program takes 3 or 4 seconds to run, that's 3 or 4 seconds per row. And if you've got, let's say a few thousand rows coming through, you can imagine that your package could be hours in runtime. Versus using a derived column. And a derived column is done in batch on the data buffers, and that runs in about a few milliseconds per 10,000, so much faster using derived columns. So I would avoid using script components if you can. If you've only got a few rows, or if it's just you don't have any other choice, then okay, script component. But for performance, I would try to avoid these at all costs. Okay, you can use variables in your script components. You have row attributes that we'll look at, and again, performance is the major killer here, and I would avoid these if you can, just for performance reasons. But let's show you how to use them. Oh, also, I don't know if you guys know, I'm married with kids, and I'm a great dad. There you go. Just kidding, that's not mine. I found that picture on the internet, but that is cool though, huh? I wish I had one of those for my kids when they were younger. All right, so let's go on to the next one here. So I've got a few of these in here, and let's tell you what, before I go into these, let's go sort of new package here, just blank from scratch. I like to do that so you guys can see it built from the ground up here. And I'm going to grab an OLEDB source here, and I'm just going to create a new connection to AdventureWorks. And we'll grab the, oh, that's a AdventureWorks data warehouse. I want the AdventureWorks, just plain AdventureWorks. And there's a table in here called production.product. Let's use that. I'll go ahead and bring everything in. And then we'll grab a script component here. Again, you can use them as a source, a destination, or a transformation. I'm going to use it as a transformation here. And we'll connect up. And this are my products coming in. And if one day I'll take a typing class. All right, there we go. And let's open up our script component. So it looks very similar to the ScriptTask back in the control flow. Here you'll see we have our read-only and read-write variables where you can enter those in. Again, .NET can be either VB or C# in 2008. In 2005, your only choice is VB. And we have a couple of new columns over here. We have our input columns, input-output columns, and some connection managers. If you go to input columns, here are the columns. These are all the columns that we have coming into this script component. Now, we don't want to pass everything into our ScriptTask unless we need every single column. You want to pass in just the ones you're going to be working on. A couple reasons. One, for performance, and then two, also, you don't want to accidentally make a change to a column that you didn't mean to change. So in this case here, I just want to make a change to the color column. So I'm going to hit color there, and I'm going to change this to a read-write column, and I'm going to make some changes to that column. If you go to inputs and outputs, you can create new outputs here. So we can go to output columns. I can click on add column over here, and I can give it a new name. Say this would be new color. And then I can give it a data type over here, a string or whatever I want it to be. So I could actually put a new column out and put it into this thing here, this new color column if I wanted to. I'm not going to do that though. We're going to just make a change to the existing column of color. Let's go ahead and go to edit script now. And we'll maximize this. All right, couple things. Same imports going on up here, importing the wrappers that you need. Also, pre-execute and post-execute. These are new for this, for the script component versus the script task. The pre-execute will execute before your data flow, and a post-execute will execute after the data flow. You can also call variables in here. Now, variables are called a little differently here. And this one, you're going to use me.variables. And then you get the name of the variable. So it actually does pull the name of the variable. Again, you still have to enter it in that first screen back on the script task here. You do have to make sure you enter the variables into here. But you do me.variables and you can pull those in. But variables are only used in the pre or post execute. You're not going to use those during the flow down below here. This process input row. You're not going to make changes or anything like to the variable. It won't let you do those. And if we get a chance, I'll show you that. But let's go into the actual script task here. So right here, where it says process input row, I'm going to go down a couple lines here, and I'll put in my rows here. So to get the rows that we passed in, or the columns, we'll type in row dot, and there's my column right there. There's color. Now I only have one column showing here because that's the only one I passed in. If I go back and I check some more of those, it would show those listed here too. There's one other one here, color is null, so it's the name of the column with is null behind it. That just gives you basically a true or false, whether it is null or not. So if you want to check to see if a row or a column is null, it allows you to do that without having to do any other VB.NET coding. Just a little add-on for you there. So row.color, and there's my row. So let's say I want to do a case statement here. We're going to declare a variable. We'll say dim, and let's say we're going to convert our colors from the actual color names to some sort of hexadecimal value. So I'm going to create a new variable. I'm going to call it hex, and then I'm going to say case. Oops, not case. I'm going to do select case. Case, and then a case is going to be row.color, and we'll say case, and let's say red, return, and then I can return a hexadecimal color for red, and I don't know what it is for red, something like that, and so on and so forth. So I've actually got this already copied and pasted into my text pad over here, my notepad. So let me pull that up so you guys don't have to sit here and watch me type all day long. It'll save us some time. So I'm just going to copy and paste this right into my script task here. There we go. So let's show you what I've done here. So I'm selecting the row here, and I'm doing a U case on that. I'm uppercasing it because I'm doing uppercase on all my words here, just in case someone entered in lowercase color in my database. And then I'm returning a hex value here. So I'm getting a hex value back for each one of these. And then I'm setting row.color equal to that hex value. So because my color row here is actually a read-write row, read-write column, I'm able to enter in the hex value into that. So we can save this, close it, and close this. Let's go back to my script task here, close that. Save the package, and what I'll do is I'll put if I can get it to stop freezing on me, I'm going to throw just a conditional split under my script component just so I have something to look at here. Just kind of using that as an anchor point. And what I'll do is before the script component, I'm going to add a data viewer here. And I'm not going to add in all the rows. We'll take those off, and I'll add in just the product ID and the name and then the color. Okay, and I'll do the same thing for the data viewer down below here. Put a data viewer on this, but I just want to show just the product ID, the name, and the color. Click OK, click OK. There we go. So now I should see the colors before and after the script task or script component, and let's execute this and let's see what happens. So here it is before. This is my color. I have some null colors. There's black, silver, some more nulls. Lots of colors in here. There's a lot of nulls too. Red, black, multicolor there. Lots of different colors. Let's go ahead and close this one. Let's get the next one to pop up. And here is my next one. Here's the data viewer after the script task. You can see that the ones who had colors have been converted to their hexadecimal. The ones that were null are still null. And we can scroll down. We'll see a bunch of those down here. There's multi in blue and white. So if I did not have that in my script task, of course those aren't going to change. If we go back to my script task, You can see what I did to make that happen. And wait for it to come back up. So basically what I did was get the case here, go to red, yellow, green, silver, and black. If it doesn't find anything there, I say case else, just leave the hex value as blank. And I'm going to say if the hex value is not blank, then set the row color. So I don't want to change the row color if I get nothing back. If I don't get a case back here, I'll leave it like it is what I'm basically doing here. And so that's why we have some of the colors still staying there. Like for example, multi is not in here and blue is not in here. All right, and I'll show you one more data flow one. Now there are some things you can do with ScriptTask in a data flow, and I would suggest never doing them, but I'm going to show them to you anyway here. So I had a client one time that say, you know, I got this file coming in, or a table I'm going through, and in the file I've got 100 different columns on my file, and I want to do some work on each one of those columns, but the work is the same thing over and over again. So for example, let's say I've got 100 date columns, and each one of those I need the date converted to a string, or each one of those I need the date incremented by a year or something like that. I need something changed for each one of those columns. You can do that with a drive column and it will work very, very quickly. It will take some time to set up though, because you have to set 100 different columns inside your derived column transform to make it happen. But it will work much faster than what I'm about to show you here. But if you only have a few columns and you only have a few rows, this is something you can do. So you can look at for each column. So if you've got, say, a file coming in, it's got 100 columns on it, and you need to do something to each one of those columns, this is a way you can do that. This is very, very, very slow, because now not only are you doing something for each row, now you're doing something for each column also. And this is a significantly slower way to do it. But I'll show you how to do it, so if you do want to do it, you can. If you look up top here, I did have to bring in one more import here. You'd need to bring in system.reflection so that you can actually refer to the columns themselves. So let's go down here. And basically what I'm doing here now is I'm declaring a column, a row, and a column value here. And these, the types over here all come from that system.reflection, so you got to make sure you have that declared. Oh, and also this ScriptTask is on my blog also too, so if you want to copy this, you can pull it off of there. So say for each column, so it's going to look at each one of those columns, get the value of the column that we're looking at, and then I'm pulling in the date. There's a date on that column there. And then I want to convert it to a string. So string date as, and then DT date year to string, and then I'm doing a write to here. For those of you who don't know, if you want a 2-digit date or 2-digit month out of a date, just use this little trick here. Write with the string 0 in front there, plus, and then this date 2, and that gives you a 2-digit date all the time out of that. So if the date is 1 through 9, you'll get 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, etc. If it's 10 or higher, you'll get 10. You'll drop the 0 because of the 2 here. All right, so that gives me a string date out of this. Now, this takes a long time to run, so I'm not going to actually pass it in, but if you wanted to, you do column value, set value, and then set it equal to whatever value you want to set it equal to. I'm not going to do that because it takes forever for this to run, so I'm just going to do a message box right here and just show you the date that's coming in. So let's close this, and if you take a look at the date coming in here so you can see this in a preview. So you can see here's my date coming in. It's got the time at the end of it here, so it's date time columns. And if we execute this, cross your fingers, there we go. And now I'm getting my string date out all together in one line like I want. And you see I got 2 digits. So even though it's 7-1, I got 0701 like I wanted out of that. So I'm getting the exact date I wanted. So it is converting my date, but again, this is going to be very, very slow running this here. And I think I have some benchmark tests I did on my blog you can look at too that tells you how slow these are. Okay, so let's go back to the slideshow one last time. So here's my information. My blog's on BIDN. You can also follow me on Twitter if you're a tweeter. And I guess it's about 10 minutes till now, so we should go ahead and jump to questions. Tim, you want to go ahead and bring some questions up for me?
Absolutely, and let's go ahead. We've had a couple of people waiting patiently. I have to tell you, it was funny, Mike. You know, back when you had success in your code and you were looking for what was happening,
Mm-hmm.
uh, everybody in the room was chatting with you that picked it up. So we got a real heads-up audience here.
Good, good, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's much better doing this live
Let's
because
see.
when I do it live, I get that. I get, hey, everybody corrects my code for me. Wouldn't it be great to be able to code with 40 people standing behind you watching you all day long, just correcting your mistakes?
Oh yeah, it's amazing how quickly people pick up. Yeah, exactly. But let me go here. This one goes back to Gina, and hold on. For some reason, my questions got buried underneath about 100 other applications. So let me just make sure I got this right here. All right. All right. Sorry about that, Mike.
That's right.
Hit the wrong
I
button.
got the questions up here. I got them.
All right, you got one there? Okay.
Yep. All right. So first
Yep,
question.
go ahead and take one up on.
Sure. Please discuss where the DTS task results script testing. Okay. So Christian has a question about the task results. Hopefully I covered that. By using the if-then statements and things like that, you can place the DTS task results at the end of a statement. Obviously, I showed you the wrong place to use it by just sticking it at the end there and leaving it there. You want to make sure you're putting it in proper places. If you do want a failure out of your task result because you want the package to fail, then you use failure and put it after whatever the proper if-then or case statement is that you're using inside of that script task. All right, let's see. What is the purpose of the variable dispenser? Okay, sorry I didn't have time to go over that. The variable dispenser will allow you to loop through all the variables on the package. So it's basically a list of all the variables you have on your package and allows you to pull each one of those in. So if you've got 50 variables in your package, variable dispenser will allow you to loop through and get all 50 of those variables. Don't use that very often. Most of the time I pull in the individual variables that I want. And let's see, if you leave it at the end, won't the script, oh yeah, the success, same thing here. You still have the original success. Okay, isn't it fine? Success, success. Yeah, you're right. Everybody was, okay. You left the success.
Yeah, I think if you start with Gina there, I was just teed up with her, and somehow my, I think it went to another screen, and I don't have another screen. So go ahead, Mike.
Okay. Actually, thank you for the way of doing it. Okay. Yep. Okay. If there's time at the end, could we cover if there's ever a reasonable scenario to expose a class to COM? I just saw that setting and wondered what it would be for. Gina, I can't think of any scenario why you would want to do that. Script tasks, script components, I try to avoid them. I write them when I need to, but I try to avoid those because of the fact that they are so much slower. And with all these new tools coming out like Task Factory and stuff, now I'm getting to where I use them less and less because there's tasks that do those things for you. So I can't really think of one for that. So
I've got one here for you. If you want, Mike, I can help you out now. I'm back in business here.
Sure, go ahead.
This one goes out to Christian. He's been waiting also right after Gina here. A session on interpreting the progress or execution results would be helpful. Is that something that you could cover real quickly? Is that something anything that you could touch on here?
A session on interpreting the progress while executing or executing results after. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. So what he's asking for is, let me get this back over here. Go to execution results. Interpreting these results here. Yeah, that's a whole other session. That's a good one. I think I need to create a session on that because these execution results and progress results, they're very confusing, and all the little icons and symbols in here. That would be a great session for me to do, say, next month or so. But
yeah, let's do that next month if we can, yeah. Mike. I'll talk to you afterwards. We'll put it in the calendar.
Yep.
Thanks, Christian. In fact, any of you, if you have any ideas for good sessions, we're open to it, and hopefully we can help you out. But moving on to Alan, he has, from a reusability standpoint, would it be best to wrap complex script tasks into the component? What would be the drawback from this approach?
From a reusability standpoint, would it be best to wrap complex script tasks into component? Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, so that's kind of like what I was talking about with the data flow here, doing like a for each on all your columns and having it repeat and do that work. The disadvantage is performance. Performance is the killer here. And when I say a killer, it's not even close. A derived column, if I did a derived column on those 500 rows that I was just working on, a derived column, those 500 rows would go through in about a second or a second and a half. Using a script task, doing the for each column, it's probably going to take about 6 minutes. So it's not even close. The performance is just horrendous when it comes to you're using this. So I try to avoid these at all costs when it comes to that. If I've only got, say, 10 rows coming through, okay, then I might go ahead and let it go through. But I wouldn't. I would suggest not using them unless you absolutely have to. Script components now, back in the control flow, those are great. Use those as much as you need to. If you don't have something in a toolbox to do what you want, and you don't have a add-on like Task Factor or something like that, then I'd go ahead and write the ScriptTask to do it. Write the VB.NET to do it.
All right, great. Going out to Shashin, Mike. He wants to know, how do you dynamically build the file name instead of hard coding it in the variable?
Oh, okay. Sure. I can show you that real quick. So, all right. So, usually what you're going to do, and I assume what he's asking here is like adding, like, say, date and things like that to a variable name.
Yep, correct.
Right. All right.
Yep.
So what you're going to do usually is you're going to do two things here. And I like to use multiple variables for this because you may want to pass this information in from a configuration file or configuration table outside the package. So what I'll do is I'll do a STR Date, and I'll do a file and STR extension also. I'm trying to do this as quick as I can because now we're low on time here. There we go. And so the file, C slash test, something like that, and then the extension will be .txt. But if you want to say throw the date in there, so the date shows up behind the test there, then I'll create a expression on this. Now I'm using BI Express to do this, but it's the same thing if you went to the expression editor. Just BI Express makes it a little easier because it's got some snippets built in for me here. Date time expressions. I can get the current date time like that. And then what I'll do is I'll create one last variable. It'll be like full file name. And I know I'm doing this fast, but and then in there, again, expression, I'll grab the file, I'll grab the date, and I'll grab the extension, and just put pluses between each one of those so I can concatenate them together. And let's evaluate that. There we go. And that's how you get the date out of that. So now I've got the date added to my file name. I just used a couple of variables here to kind of put those together. I know that was kind of fast, but I hope you saw that. The main important one here is the STR date. That's the one, just you get the date here as a string format. And to do that, again, I'm using that write function, write 0 to 2 to get the month and the day, and then I get a year also, casting them all as strings. And then you evaluate that, and you get today's date out of it as a string. Using the expression language, expression language is where you get most of your work done in there.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Mike.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've got a few more questions. I think we'll be able to knock them all out here today for the first time. Sherry's asking if you are going to make the code available after the webinar. Any of this, the codes that you've used?
Yep, all the code that I've done here is available on my blog.
Okay, and that's on BIDN, correct?
Yep, on BIDN. Yep. Every bit of this code I've shown today is available on there.
All right. So Sherry, that's www.bidn.com, and you'll see Mike on that, and just go to his blog. If any of you are interested, I think that might answer your question as well, Christian. So let's move on to Lily. Lily, yep, there is a recording that's coming on. We'll be holding this recording. In fact, Mike, I want to remind you that you took the recording. So after you're done, you'll see the GoToWebinar recording. It takes about an hour for that to put on your desktop. So once we have that, we'll go ahead and post that to the calendar where you can get all of the recordings, which, by the way, Lily, just in case you haven't seen them, it's at pragmaticworks.com. Just hit webinars, and you'll see all of the old webinars that we've done, as well as this one today. Let's see. Can you do this for Ermias? Can you discuss the steps to read the file headers?
Sure.
For you, Mike?
Yeah, I can go back into it. Again, the one to read the file headers, that one is on my blog right here. And so if you want a step-by-step walkthrough, I do have a lot of information here walking through and some examples showing you how it would work and other ways to do it too. But basically what I'm doing is, if you look at this file here, these are header lines right here up top, and I don't want to pull those lines in. But right down below, here's my data. There's my data right there, and I want to pull that in. I do need that. So actually, there's a better example up top here. There we go. So there's my headers right there. And there's my data down below here. So I want to read just these lines, and each one of these lines is going to have a delimiter. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 delimiters there. All right, and so it's going to count the delimiters on this line. If it counts 6, then I'm going to assume that's a good line. That's a line with data on it, and I'm going to write that off to another file. I could have, inserted it into a table or done something, whatever else I wanted to do. I just made it easy and put a file out of it. Then I can read that file in with a data flow. This line up here doesn't have six delimiters in it, so it's going to know that is not a good line and skip over that line. That's basically what it's doing. And then down here, again, here's some more headers. It'll skip those lines, and then it'll read these as data. And then it'll skip these lines, and so on and so forth. So it'll skip the lines that don't have the proper delimiters. There is one gotcha with this. If you're, if you have a header and that header happens to have the exact same number of delimiters as you need, then it'll read that line in as a row. But other than that, this is a pretty good, way to look to a delimited file to remove your headers.
All right, and you definitely want to live on Dustin Street, which is Cool Street, not Bryan's, which is Slum Street.
Oh, you noticed that,
huh? All right, this one goes out to Dale. Dale has, I have a flat file with 100 plus columns. Is there a dynamic way of mapping field columns from source to a destination?
All right, so where's that question at? Who is that?
He is top 4 from the bottom. He has a flat file with 100 plus columns.
Is there a dynamic way of mapping fields and columns from source and string? Oh, okay, gotcha. No, unfortunately, there's not. Hopefully, in the next SSIS, they're going to put something in like that. But right now, if the names match and the data types match, it should automatically map up. So if your table matches your files coming in, your columns coming in, and you drag it to your destination, they'll automatically map up. If the names don't match or the data types don't match, it's going to make you manually map those over one by one. So sorry about that.
Okay. This one goes out to James. Welcome, James. First time I've seen your name in the questions here. Would it be a bad idea to use a script component as a source?
No, not generally. You can use a script component as a source. It's not common. You don't see that used often. But if you've got some sort of connection to some strange thing that, or you need your connection to be very dynamic or something like that, then you could do that. The problem with it is that in the data flow itself, all the metadata is pretty much hard coded in. Like if you look at the data flow over here, if I go to back into one of these data flows. Here we go. And I double click on the green line here, the data flow line, and go to metadata. All these column names and the data types that are all here, this is all saved in the data flow, and you can't really change that at runtime. So you can use a script task as or a script component as a source, but your metadata coming out really has to match. Everything still has to be the same. I know a lot of people try to bring them in and make it dynamic, say, oh, it'll grab just these 10 columns this time, and next time it'll grab these 5 columns. And you can't really do that because it's going to fail. It's going to say those columns are not found in the data flow. So you can, not very common. In fact, with all the scripting I've done, I have yet to write a script component as a source yet.
Okay. All right. And this one goes back to Cindy. Now, Cindy had a question that went back to Amias's example you just did. She'd like to know if the page, if what you just did with Amias, which was discussing the steps to read the file headers, if you could do that for page breaks as well.
Oh, okay, I got you. So page breaks, so I guess what you mean is this is just reading in one single file, just like a flat file. So you wouldn't really have page breaks in there, but I guess if you have some sort of hidden code like a extra carriage returns, line feeds, things like that, it should read those in just like it reads any other text coming in there. If you have multiple pages, let's say you have multiple files, and you want to do like a for each loop, and a loop through each one of the files, and then put that script task inside of there to look at each one of those files.
Okay, hopefully that helps you out, Cindy. If not, by the way, everybody, Mike's code and all of that is available on BIDN, but also Mike's available there as well. So if you want to connect with Mike there directly after today's webinar, we are getting close to the end of the session here. Let's see here. This actually, I will follow up with you. Cindy just had another question. Is it in the format of a report with delimiters? And yes, that helps, so thanks. All right. So is it in the format of a report with delimiters, Mike? When you do those page breaks?
I'm not sure what she means by that question. Is it in the format of a report with delimiters? I don't know what you mean. Well, all it does, Cindy, is it pulls in. Oh, okay. Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Is this
Okay.
making a
She was
statement?
making a statement. Oh,
All
it
right.
is in the form of a report with the limit. Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Cindy. And one more for Gary. Mike, if you've got the time.
Yep.
For the header stripping, what do you do if the column names are part of the file but not really the date or rally date? Rally
So
date?
for the header stripping, what do you do if the column names are part of the file but not? Oh, I got you. Okay, but not really data.
Yeah,
I got you. Okay,
really
I
date.
understand. Okay,
Gotcha. Sorry, Gary.
great. That's a great question. Okay, so what I've done on the one I showed does not have those, but he's right. If it has column names in there, it's going to count those as data. But that's one of the reasons that I did what I did with this. I had it read the file in. Let's go back to my blog because I already have it up here. What I do is I have it read the file in and then spit out this other file, and here we go. So this would be the file that this would be the example of what would be. This is what came in above it here, and then this is the headers and all that kind of junk, and then below here this is the file that gets created. If there was column headers, they would be at the top of this file right now. They would be at the very top of this file being read in. Now in my data flow, I would just make sure I check the box on my flat file connection that says column names in the first row. And make sure I check that. Now, if you have column, if those data column headers show up more than once, let's say they show up, say, right here, and then again they show up down here some other time, and you need to remove those, you don't want to put those in as data, then you'll have to have some sort of derived column or conditional split in your data flow that'll look for the name of the column and then just remove that row.
All right. Hopefully that helps you out, Gary. We are a little bit we're about 8 minutes over the hour, and I think that's just about it, Mike. So, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think that's it. Thanks for everybody for coming.
You're all set. Yeah, thank you everybody for showing up on the short week. We will be tomorrow. We are having a webinar tomorrow on building your career around SQL Server Business Intelligence. Brian and I will be heading that up, and that will start at 11 a.m. Eastern as normal. And we will not have a Thursday session this week because it is a short week for many of us. So thank you again for coming. For those of you that are here for the first time, just go to pragmaticworks.com and hit webinars. And today's webinar will be up as a recording. If not this afternoon, definitely by tomorrow. And again, if you want to reach Mike, you just go to BIDN.com. So thank you, everybody. We'll go ahead and close the webinar. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.